In the Greater Copenhagen, there live about 1.5 million people, and among them, there's a sizable number of people who do not speak Danish language. They are au pair girls, they are green card holders, they are diplomats, but there are also many among ethnic and religious minorities who have not learned the language. And that is why the aim of this program is to reach all those people in a respectful manner and bring to them the guests who can provide them with the information. The mainstream media does not do that. My name is Bashy, and I'm the host today. And you're also welcome to send us your suggestion and your comments, and in the end we can maybe give you our telephone number and email. But today we have a very special guest in the studio, Mr. Mishra. Welcome to the studio. He's a human rights expert, he's a politician, and of course he's a speaker and commentator in many different events, and he also has a blog in newspaper Politiken. Before we get into the heavy discussion, Mr. Mishra, would you like to tell us about your background?
Yes, as you said, my name is Mishra, and I'm born and brought up in India.
Okay.
And I lived there almost half of my life, and then I moved to Denmark. And then in Scandinavia, I have lived the rest of the half of my life.
So you are that we call in Danish language a person with non-Danish cultural background.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm. For years, people in Denmark, they read your columns not in Politiken, but in Jyllands-Posten, which is a very conservative and very right-wing, I would call it extreme right-wing newspaper. We also heard you in TV and radio, and you made a lot of waves, actually. You were very critical about ethnic minorities, especially those who come from outside Europe and also Muslims. You talked a lot about Pakistan and Islam. And I can tell you personally, I didn't like what you were saying for many, many years. Mm. And you were also involved with what I call extreme right-wing movements. You even invited Geert Wilders to speak at the European Parliament together with Danish Free Press Society. Now, can you tell me, because with your in-depth knowledge of those right-wing movements and people who do not like people like you and me, actually, what was going on in that circle? What was the speaking?
Definitely, I would like to answer one small correction, that I was one of the persons invited, and I didn't invite Geert Wilders, but I spoke at the same conference in the parliament, Danish parliament.
I remember that very well.
Yes. And yes, I was heavily involved. I wrote my thesis on freedom of expression and right to free speech. And of course, I got swayed and pulled by this organization, the Trygfrie Selskab, the Free Press Society of Denmark, because they said that they were fighting for the right for free speech. It took me some while before I realized that it was something else, not just free speech.
What was that?
Yes, I think it was more like marginalizing certain immigrant groups, especially people with Muslim background, and making some sweeping, generalizing, degrading statements about these minorities in a context, we have to remember, where these minorities do not have any chance to answer back. So I felt extremely bad that I was part of this, but yes, I was part of these right-wing circles, and I have seen them from inside, both in Denmark and in Sweden.
One thing which always intrigues me, because you are like me, a dark person with an Indian background, and you are among lots of Danish people, European, who are, not like you. Didn't you feel uncomfortable being in this kind of company?
Well, when you move to another country, of course, you want to get integrated, you want to mix with people. And I made a decision that I'm going to listen to both to the left and to the right and to the middle political views. And this was my naive kind of imagination that, yes, of course, when these people are inviting me, and this is a very good step that I am taking, which today I regret, honestly.
So then this clean break you made with them, you know, you left Posten, now you are writing in Politiken. How come? I mean, you have explained a little bit, but can you go a little bit deeper? What made you change that you don't want to be part of that right-wing movement which is marginalizing ethnic minorities?
Well, Mr. Bashy, I really saw the effects of my own actions and these campaign against defenseless minorities, if I may say so.
Sure.
These are people with good-hearted, I have met them, and I felt that because of my writing, or to put it very bluntly, I was being used to create attacks on these people, project them as criminals, project them as people who wouldn't like to follow the laws, project them as people who have no interest in getting integrated, project them as people who do not want to work, etc., etc. So I felt that I was being used. You know, there are certain things that white people cannot say, so then people like me with brown skin can go and say, and then nobody can say it's racist. But I felt that I was being used in a way, and I wanted to, in fact, I wanted to really come out clearly, and that's what I have done, and said that I have regretted it, and I apologize actually to the whole population in Sweden and Denmark for having done this, because I feel that I have harmed innocent people in that way.
But you have not apologized like others have done that.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when this change of heart came from you, and as far as I know, you are the only one from that milieu who have reverted to being a better humanistic person, you know. But on the other hand, we have lots of people among ethnic minorities, many with Muslim background, who are actually taking over that flag you had in your hand. We recently had Mr. Akari, you know, Imam, will talk about that later. But, you know, this changing of direction, it must come because of some experience you had with some. Are you, as you say yourself, you realized that you were doing something wrong?
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that there were certain members of the Free Press Society that gave some statements that were very generalizing and against the Muslim community. And even then and even now, I have never approved of those degrading ways of talking about any people. But I mean, I have to say that there is some kind of responsibility that lies also with the Danish society. It has become a very easy way to climb the ladder of success in Denmark if you criticize the minorities. If you criticize Muslim, that's one of the best ways to create a good political career, good ways to get better jobs, get accepted by the Danish media, etc., etc. I took the opposite course, which of course people know now. I did the opposite thing, yes.
What was their reaction, you know, those who you left behind and who felt somehow that you have abandoned the ship, I mean the right-wing movement? Are they angry at you?
Yes, quite a lot of them. They tried to circulate a lot of theories of conspiracy, saying that because I am not going to become the member of parliament, or I had some other very huge ambitions and economic and other things, which is not the case. I realized that, you know, I come from a country, India, which has 1,683 languages. We have had just the previous government, a Muslim who was the vice president. One of the presidents of India has been Muslim. So and the prime minister of India was a Sikh. So you have several minorities, and I was also had this feeling. I feel that I did some injustice to my own background, coming from a country which is a fantastic example of multiculturalism, and I was helping people who were working against multiculturalism.
Yes. Many right-wing extremists, they claim that they want to preserve Danish identity. They don't want these minorities to destroy their culture and their way of living. Don't they have a point?
Yes, there are ways of preserving your minority without filling your mind and your heart with prejudice and hatred and things like that. And I think this narrow nationalism is very dangerous in Europe. It is not only dangerous to all ethnic minorities, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, Western or non-Western. I think it can turn the clock back, and we know, if we study the history of Europe, we know in the last 100 years, more people have been killed on this continent in the name of nationalism than anywhere else in the world.
Sure.
And that's why there is a good reason to be cautious of these movements. My getting out of the movement is a warning that these movements are actually unhealthy, dangerous, nationalistic, and maybe there are other ways of forming identity than criticizing minorities.
But there's another argument which is coming from many people, that there is no racism in Denmark, that minorities are too sensitive to just a little bit criticism and even genuine criticism. What is your opinion about that?
I think there is ample of proof to show that there is racism. You can see the statistics of people who are put behind bars in jails. There is a heavy representation, and I definitely think often these prejudiced views that immigrants commit crimes creates the basis for that even more people are put behind bars. There are examples where people can't get apartment, can't get jobs, and are not able to mix within the society. So there are many examples of racism in Denmark. One cannot deny that.
We talked about Imam Akari, the famous Imam, who was part of this delegation who went to Middle East after the caricature of Prophet Muhammad. And now he has teamed up with a former politician, Nasir Khadar, who he was quite a good friend of you in many years. Now he has received a lot of support and a lot of goodwill and a lot of media coverage, which is very positive towards him. Why didn't you get this kind of coverage? Because you did also the same thing in another direction. Does it say anything to you?
Well, it's, as I said earlier, there is this formula of success. The moment you criticize, the moment you start saying that there is a lot of Islamism, there is a lot of fundamentalists in the Danish societies, and they are about to almost wage a war with the Danish values, then you shoot up and get a very good career. And I think that's what happened with Akari's case, and it has become a formula. You see one example after another. You had Yaha Hassan, the poet. He's a young boy. I totally understand. He had the desire to express some frustration with the background that he grew up in. But when you make sweeping sentence that they all are committing crimes,
Muslims are like that.
Yeah, things like that. And then you all of a sudden become very popular. I did the opposite and said, wait, don't make these statements, because you are in the process harming innocent young boys and girls who have dreams of becoming equal citizens in this country.
Right. But you have been neglected, as I understand. Do you feel somehow that you did wrong? I mean, all of a sudden, from being the top dog, you came down to the bottom now. Is this fair treatment or unfair treatment?
Well, I feel that as long as I have my heart, in the right place, and I act according to my feelings. One of my professor in English in India, he said that God has given you both head and a heart, and the mouth is in the middle, so use both of them. I feel that I have used my heart and said that I love people of India, of Pakistan and Bangladesh, and I want to do something.
And Danes too.
Danes too, of course. And I want to to do something constructive, create bridges, not wars.
Sure.
And that was the reason why I left the whole thing.
So do you think that this alliance or link of Akari Khader, is it good or bad for the society, or for Islamophobia, for example?
Well, I think his explanations are pretty naive. They are justifying the right-wing movement. He's probably done just the opposite of what I did. And I simply have difficult time understanding these simplistic solutions and explanations. You have to understand the politics of the Middle East to understand why things have gone the way they have. And you can't give this simple answer that it's simply because of religion. So singling out Islam, criticizing Islam, this has become a passion of many right-wing people, and I think it's a very dangerous trend that needs to be stopped.
So in your opinion, if I be a little bit more clear on that, do you think that Denmark as an intercultural society is better, as a multicultural, as a monocultural? What kind of model do you aspire for?
I think there is no escaping. All societies in the world are getting globalized, and so is Denmark. And it is high time that there is respect and accept of different minorities who are living, and not just the different sexual minorities like homosexuals, but also there are people from different countries who have come here. And I think we should, in Denmark, once again start seeing diversity as something positive, not as a threat, which the right wing wants people of Denmark to believe.
And also the economical benefits.
Definitely, and you can see that one of my articles, which has been very well read, is where I said that Europe is heading for a demographic disaster. Number of people is going down, number of children born is going down so heavily. So if Europe does not want to end up as a continent of gray-haired people, it will have to welcome these new immigrants who will eventually contribute and help the societies remain rich.
You have lived in Denmark and also Sweden. I find Swedish model of integration much more progressive and better than Denmark. Do you have the same opinion, or do you think Danish model is better?
I am definitely of this opinion that Sweden has confronted and has a very good policy to fight racism. I think when it comes to racist ideas, the Swedish society is very stern and stubborn about fighting it. And the media is very clear that they do not want to give views, racist views, unchecked racist views, a free flow in the media. So yes, sometimes I feel in the name of freedom of speech, a lot of things are said in Denmark which actually shouldn't be allowed to be said. So I think that there is this debating culture which is different. And when it comes to racism, I think Sweden has done a better job, definitely.
Talking about Sweden and Denmark, I know that this N word, which has been a lot of, which was discussed in both in Denmark and Sweden, in Sweden you cannot use this N word for black people, you know. But when we approached here many years back and even today, the standard answer is that this is part of the Danish society. So I just want to ask, I mean, this kind of derogatory word should be part of the society?
Definitely not, and I think we should educate our children that you build a better society where you create respect for others, and you know, the N word is in one way mobbing people, creating stereotypes. I think we have to get out of this stereotyping of people, of minorities, and I totally agree that N word is one of the ways of stereotyping, that some people are unintelligent or whatever that may mean. I think we need to have one new way of dialogue and conversation in which all people of the world are addressed in a respectful manner.
But why there's such a big difference between Sweden and Denmark, where in Sweden they have banned this word, they don't want, you know, and in Denmark we say no, we cannot, this is part, I mean, they're neighbors. I mean, it's the same culture almost.
Yeah, I think you could probably, I would say that there is some sort of you know, freedom of speech fundamentalism, sort of, you know, that after the cartoon crisis, many people, especially in the right wing, think that the identity is that they can print everything, they can say everything and get away with it.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and they have to realize that they just can't get away with it. The world is watching, and in a globalized world, the messages spread quite fast and has not only diplomatic consequences, but economic and political consequences.
There is a law in Danish penal code, it's called 266B, which is against incitement to hatred and statements, racist statement. There are many political parties and also intellectuals who want to abolish that. They say there's no need to have this kind of law. This is against freedom of speech again. Do you think that we should have that law? Or?
I think they should first abolish racism and then try to abolish the racism law. I think as long as racism exists, there is a need of a provision and a law to protect the minorities.
Legal protection.
Absolutely.
Very soon we are going to have election for European Parliament. Actually, it's 2 weeks away now. And as you, as a commentator, you know that right-wing parties are on the rise all over Europe, not only in Denmark. Danish People Party, they say, is going to have almost 25% of the votes, which is horrible, but this is a reality what they say. Can it, these parties, when they come with such a big number, don't you think that they can actually change progressive laws? They can stop the anti-racism campaigns or laws in European Parliament. What can we do?
I think it's a very dangerous thing that people have to realize, especially keeping the fact in mind that Western Europe has a big prestige and is seen up to in many parts of the world. So that is a very worrying thing, and I feel especially there are these right-wing nationalistic parties in Southern Europe and Eastern Europe that clearly are suggesting that we have to blacklist the people with Jewish background, and Roma people have to be checked, etc., etc.
And homosexuals.
And homosexuals. And in many places, like in Greece, you have seen that immigrants are beaten up in the streets.
Killed.
Yeah, killed. And racist violence simply based with racist motive is increasing.
Yeah.
Keeping that in mind, the rise of the extreme right wing is an extremely worrying factor.
But 25% vote are going to Danish People Party, who everybody knows what kind of opinion they have. Isn't it strange?
It is, and I think that's where I feel that the Danish media has failed a bit. They have not given them critical questions, you know, and if you see who they will be cooperating with, it's like they cannot get much done either. So I think in some sense, I would say that the immigrants of Denmark have to also realize that the European Parliament, the European institutions actually protect their rights more than the nationalist states like Denmark or Sweden. So they are protected more because of European Union. So they should think what they're going to vote.
So what you're saying is to our viewers that when they go on 25th May and vote, please vote for progressive parties.
Exactly.
And not those racist parties or parties who are extreme right-wing, who are going to actually cut your rights. You know?
Exactly. I'm talking about pro-EU parties.
Exactly.
These pro-EU parties are also the parties who will maintain these EU institutions and their legitimacy, which have protected the minorities much more than national states. So very often, not only EU, but you take the European Court of Human Rights, which is another good institution, it has stopped national governments from trying to be too harsh with the minorities.
We don't have much time, but I want to ask you about something very important to my heart, and that is the relationship between Pakistan and India. Even it's not a Danish issue, but you recently wrote a very interesting article in Politiken where you said that there is Indian election coming on, and it's very important, and it's should be hoped that this election will be opening towards Pakistan-India better relations. And it's a historical chance, you know. Keeping in mind the historical rivalries and conflict over Kashmir and other issues, you know, why do you think the peace is possible between these two nuclear powers?
I don't think, I not only think that peace is possible, peace is absolutely essential. Okay. I have always believed in Mahatma Gandhi, who felt that we were actually one people and we should never have parted. But now that the two countries exist, I have a dream that one day they will form some kind of alliance, just like you have in European Union, a federation of state, where there will be more business, more cooperation, more educational exchanges, etc. And you know, I believe that the center of the world is changing from Western world to Asia. This will become the Asian century. And there, the Asian culture is very important, and I think the partnership between India and Pakistan is absolutely essential because they have one of the most wonderful culture that you can imagine of.
But not only Pakistan, India. I think that Pakistan, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh, which has been one before the partition. If they get together, so it's almost 1.5 billion or more than 1.5 billion people. The largest reserves of engineers and doctors, IT specialists, they have nuclear power, they have everything. So that can be actually a good chance for the whole people and India as a locomotive to get them out of the poverty, to stop spending on the military and start educating people. Don't you think it's a good model that all these 5 countries get together as a federation?
Absolutely, I agree with you, and I think that I also agree that India has a leading role to play. It's like the big brother there. It's a very big state, and by staying democratic, India has done a good job. But secondly, India has to extend the hand of friendship to all its neighbor and welcome them. And it is high time that we forget the petty small differences and realize all the fantastic things we have in common.
I think it's a wonderful idea. And I will also request to you, when you speak with your Indian friends and when you go there, you can tell them there's a goodwill in all those countries. But India as a big country should play the role of big brother, not a big mother.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, thank you very much for sharing your wonderful views, and I'm really thankful that among all this right-wing, anti-Islam, anti-minority lobby, that a man of your stature and intelligence and education has come out, and that you will be helping minorities to find the place they deserve in the society. And I would also say thank you to our viewers, and we will bring such wonderful guests in future. So until next time, please take good care of yourself. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.